Alrighty. So how are we going to do a 2D animation of a technical schematic? Technical schematic. In this one is a hydraulic schematic, and how do we do a 2D animation? In this one, for example, I have a few inputs: stop, start, solenoid A, solenoid B, and when I push one of the buttons, certain things happen. They become animated. For example, solenoid A, cylinder extend, and there's a series of representing flow, high pressure return line for blue, high pressure for red, then solenoid B retracts, and so it comes and again different representations of flow, and the spool moves and the valve moves, and I do stop, goes away, arrow goes down, start, I do a start, come on, give me a start, and there it is. So there's different things that happen when each one of the buttons are pushed. And how do you do this animation in a 2D? In this particular case, I think it makes sense to do 2D animation since the schematics are already in 2D. So what is it that you do? What is it that you need? The first thing that you need is a drawing. You have to do your drawing. In this case, I'm using Adobe Illustrator, and I have the drawing made, and I group the different components into different groups. So, and once I have the drawing done and group the different parts that I need in different areas, what I do is File, Save As, save it in my computer, and I don't necessarily want to save it or need to save it, but what I'm looking for is save it as SVG. And I give it whatever name you want to give it. I say save, I say okay, yes. And what I'm after is this thing over here, SVG code. This is what I need. This is what I need. I do Control A, Control copy, and now I have the code representation of the drawing that I have. And what is important to me on this drawing representation, it also gives me the ID of the different groups. The solenoid A, solenoid B, button star, and all the other parts that I group, each one of them have an ID. They all have an ID, and this ID is what I am after to do the animation. So I copy this thing, and now I said, okay, don't need this anymore. Save it for the future, and now I go to my SVG code. On SVG, I mean on my VS Code. Now I go to my VS Code. I'm using React. I'm using Next.js for this particular one. And I need a few things. I need React, and I'm using the library from GSAP. I need to install GSAP in this application. So I go to GSAP, I download, I install it, and you guys can get a little bit more information on GSAP. These guys, they don't know I exist, but I use this library because it's a good library to use for 2D animations. You don't need to use it. You can just write your code in vanilla JavaScript, and that'll be just fine. And so you come over here. This is not going to be a video about getting in the code, but getting a more of a general code on how you go about to achieve the animations, all the stuff that you need to do to get to the animation. So once I go to my VS Code, in the whatever dev that I want to place the drawing, I place the drawing. I have this dev over here as one of the columns, and I place the drawing that I just had over here, the code of the SVG, and then I have all my different IDs. Once I have all my different ID, I give the name of the ID and a class name and so on. And once I have my IDs, now I can start writing the functions that I want. For example, over here, there's a GSAP. That's it, and all the different IDs, they have an initial point. Like in this drawing, I do stop, and this is the initial position for everything. And once I do, for example, start, then I start writing the different functions, the things that are going to happen when I push the different buttons. For example, over here, I have a stage A1 for the button 1, and I have the speed and the distance for the rod, for the item that is the rod. And for this one, for this rod, is going to be this drawing right here of the rod of the cylinder. So when I push solenoid A, I want this rod to move. I give it the velocity and I give the position on where I want it. So I move 200 pixels, at a certain speed. If I push the solenoid B, now I have the rod returning. I move it another 200 pixels in a different a direction at the same speed. And at the same time, or animation one after the other one, certain things have to happen. I make this thing appear, I change the colors, I move this arrow up and down. Once it hits the limit, then fluid goes through the relief valve and so on. So that's when I write the functions, when I push the different buttons. In order to invoke the functions, if you go to the drawing, the SVG drawing that you have, let me see if I can find one of them. For example, button stop, ID G stop, on click BTN stop. This is the function that I'm invoking for the BTN stop, and that function has a series of operations that I want it to happen. And for example, over here, this is the button stop, and what's going to happen is everything goes back to normal. It deletes the colors and the arrow goes down. Same thing happened on the star, there's something else happening. So the way that you do it is basically you copy, you get the drawing, you get the SVG code, you get the ID of the different components on the SVG code, then you write a function for each one thing that you want it to happen for the different IDs. You invoke the function from the different buttons, and that is how you get the animation. So it's very easy. This is an overview of the of the code on how to do the animations. If you want me to get in details for the different functions, what is it to do and why and so on, I can do another video about it. It'll be a larger video, longer video to explain all this code over here. But basically the overview is that you just need to draw it, get the code, get the IDs, and bang, you're pretty much done, because you do the animations. And to know more about the library, you can go to the documents of the GSAP, and you have a 2D animations on just about anything you want. In this case, I think it makes sense to animate technical drawings in 2D because the drawings are already in 2D. So that's how you get done with the animations. If you want an animation of something else, leave it in the comments. I'd be interested to know what else could it be animated in 2D other than cartoons. Yeah, you can do cartoons animation as well. But what else could it be animated in 2D that is not necessarily a human cartoon, So leave it in your comments. Any questions you have, leave it in the comments. And that's the video for today. I think it's a very cool animation. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.